In this video I will show you how to play the London system, and we are going to take a look at all of the most aggressive and amazing lines for white instead of just the general IDs. So I will only analyze in this video these variations where we have d4, d5, and then I prefer first developing this knight and then developing this bishop, because with the knight first you are not immediately telling your opponent that you are playing the London system. So we're going to take a look at these main lines, especially for example after knight f6, and you know in the London there are many different lines. We will take a look at most of them. Our main idea is to play pawn to e3, and then of course, as you know, probably develop the bishop, create this pawn triangle, also develop this knight. There are many setups from black. This is the first one we're going to take a look at. If they keep this bishop stuck within of their own pawn chain, so e3 for example, and most played move by black is to play bishop to d6. The main idea is just to challenge our really strong bishop here on f4. And in the London, I am a big fan of moving your bishop back here to g3, just because you are baiting this move, bishop captures, and all of a sudden we have a rook active. And all of the lines I will show you are going to be the most aggressive attacking ones, so that is why I like playing this. But many people have already played against the London and they know that probably it's not so good to capture here. So they might do something like castles. Then we are going to continue with the normal London setup, for example with bishop d3. If you get a move like c5 earlier on, well, you can always just play c3 protecting this, so that's not really a problem. And if you get it here, of course we play it here. If they ever push pawn to c4, we are just going to draw back, and you can see this bishop is still really active on this diagonal. That is why c4 is actually not such a good move for black, but it still is played actually quite a lot by black, this push, but it doesn't really matter. We are going to play this, for example here knight c6, and that was the whole idea with black. You want to develop the knight, but you want to push the pawn first and then get the knight behind it, so you have more pressure here. And my recommendation if you are playing the London is don't castle too early, because there are so many amazing attacking lines, but you lose many of those chances if you castle too early. So we're just going to develop another knight, knight b to d2 here, also influencing the square in the center, which is going to be really important for many of our tactics. And you will see we still haven't castled yet. And here it is black to move, and there are a couple of lines. The most played are b6, which we're going to take a look at. Also rook e8 is something that is played. We're going to take a look at that as well. And also what to do if they capture, for example. But first, b6. So b6 is the line you will face the most. And against this line, we have many amazing aggressive attacking options, because black just kind of weakened this diagonal, and this knight is also unprotected. So we are going to try to play for tricks. And this line that I will show you is just amazing. We are going to push e4 immediately, basically stopping this plan from black. Because if they do so, suddenly we can push pawn to e5. This is defended 3 times, and also this is a pawn fork, attacking both the knight and bishop. So we are guaranteed to win material. So of course, if black knows what they are doing, they won't play bishop here. They will try to stop this pawn push from us and make this impossible. The most played move, of course, is to capture, because if they capture now, the pawn is gone and we don't have this trick anymore. But we are going to set up new tricks. For example, rook takes e4. And rook takes e4, you can see, knight takes e4. Knight takes e4, you can see we are attacking this bishop. This bishop is attacked twice. So again, we are forcing black to make a decision. We are attacking our bishop twice. You have to do something. You have to either move it, or you can also capture us, but that's not so good again, because this rook is going to be activated. So almost everybody here will capture your knight with their knight, trying to eliminate the threat, but as you can see, we are immediately gaining new opportunities. Suddenly we have 2 really active bishops eyeing down this enemy queen side. Also, this knight is under attack. Moving it is not a good idea, because you would lose the rook. So this variation is pretty forced. Black doesn't really have many other options. And the move that we're going to play here that will go for amazing tactics and tricks is pawn takes c5. And the entire goal is, again, to put pressure on this bishop. If black is not careful, boom, he is losing this bishop, of course, after takes and takes, for example. So black will have to do something. Again, they can always capture here, but this is probably not so good. Even if they capture your queen, because all of a sudden we have active rooks, we have threats here, the bishop is attacking, so that is not what black wants. So black will probably capture this with the bishop, another forced move, and you will see we still haven't castled yet, but don't worry, we're gonna keep up the attack. We don't need to castle here. So we're gonna play this move queen a4, again creating the next threat. You want to create attack after threat and play forcing moves, forcing black to walk down this narrow path with you, because we will have amazing tricks at the end. So queen here, attacking this knight. Again, black has to do something about this. Most likely they're going to play knight here with this trick of also trying to exchange the bishop and relieve some pressure. They might also play rook c8, which I'll take a look at as well. So knight a5 is the most played move, and here we are still not going to castle. We are going to play rook to d1. Rook d1 attacking the queen, because we also want to get our rook involved in this attack. The queen has to move, and the reason I love this position so much is because up to this point, this was all very forcing, and you will get this many times playing the London. Here it is black to move, but it is so easy for black to go wrong. There is only one move that keeps black alive, and that move is queen to c8. If they play something else, they will always lose. For example, I'm going to show you first, for example, queen e7. Now we have this rook move. So after this rook move, we are threatening to win the queen, threatening to win material, and black just has to sacrifice the queen here. If they do something else, for example, move the queen back, we even have this checkmate. Bishop takes, queen in, knight g5, and this is going to lead to checkmate. Black can try to stop this with a move like bishop here, but again, this might lead to checkmate. For example, this, again, we're going to threaten the checkmate, and black can of course not capture this because of checkmate. Maybe black has to play something like this, but again, bishop here, all of these threats, and black is just losing. So that is why in this position, queen e7 is a bad move. Queen e8 is also something you might see. Bam, sacrifice the bishop, go in with the queen, and we go for this checkmate again. So always this same idea. And the only way for black to defend is to play this move queen c8. And after queen c8, the thing that we are going to do is again bishop takes h7. But this line is actually defendable by black, but I think if you play this, black will almost never be able to defend. If you want to be more safe, you can always castle here. But I would recommend to keep up the attack. Even though there is a crazy engine defense line, I would say keep going and play bishop takes h7, queen in, and knight in. And many players here will just not know what to do. We already have this checkmate threat. Of course, this doesn't work because this is checkmate. So black has to do something. Of course, this is also checkmate. So black basically has to move the rook, or maybe do this. But of course, this is also still a checkmate threat, so that doesn't work. Rook d8 is probably the only real move that they can play, because for example, if they just move the rook here, there is check, we can go back, threaten checkmate, again threaten checkmate, give a check, and this is already a checkmate as well. So basically the only move for black is to play this move rook d8. And if you get this, I would recommend to just castle first. And we are not castling to be safe with our king. We are castling because we want to connect our rooks and keep up the attack. For example, rook takes, which is the most played line. And here you will see we are still down a full bishop. But even though we are down a bishop, we still have this attack, and also we can always push pawn to b4, forking these two pieces. And then we are winning back material. If black tries to do some counter checkmate, you can do just to check, and then for example go back here with your knight to block this diagonal, and you will see we are still down a full piece. But what is black gonna do? It's really hard to defend this. If they want to save this bishop, if you just take a look, you will see there's actually nowhere to go. Of course this would be losing, all of the other squares are occupied, and if they go here, this is just a checkmate. So they can't save the bishop. If they try to save the knight to prevent us from forking, we have something like queen check, king here, bishop check, they have to block, queen takes, queen check, again queen check, and then bring in the knight. And for example, after they go here, again another queen check, and then also a checkmate. So if they try to save one of those pieces, the knight or the bishop, they will always get into a checkmate. So basically the only defense, which I don't think you will get a lot, is this move f6. That is the only defense from black. And if they play this, there are crazy moves that you can play if you're interested, like bishop here. But you can also always just decide, okay, I'm gonna stop attacking here and we're just gonna fork this, for example, after they move back, and just win this piece here. That is also possible. Of course, in this variation that we just had a look at, they are not forced to go for this exchange here on d4. They can also always exchange your bishop. If they do so, you can always just recapture. This activates your rook, and they will have to try and defend this. And in most of those lines, you will be able to play this pawn to e5. If they capture you earlier, you can just capture back with the knight. And here it's already really hard for black to find good moves. If they go for something like this, for example, bam, bishop takes here, and this bishop is also protected. So they will have to go back. You can go back with the bishop. They have to go here. There are actually multiple good lines here for white. So if they capture this, still you are winning, of course. So probably they are not going to do that. They are going to play something like pawn to h6. And if they play this, we are going to keep up the attack, and we will do this with our g-pawn. We're going to use this g-pawn as a weapon to attack the enemy, but of course if you push it here, the knight can capture you. And that is why you want to play this move e5 first, chasing away the knight, and then pushing this pawn to g4. Again, find a move for black, maybe something like f6. It's already hard to find good moves. Capture, capture, and then we're going to continue with the attack with a move like g5. If they take you, you can take back, but I would recommend to go to d5, taking away this square. And in these lines there are also many amazing tricks. If they capture you, you can just take back, and here there's a beautiful move, Rook h8, check. If they capture you, check with the queen, check with the bishop, you go back, also taking away this square, and then you can go for this checkmate. So even in this main line, if they decide to capture your bishop on g3, they will be in a lot of trouble. And then the last thing that I want to take a look at is if you are in this variation, so we are in the main line, and they play b6, e4, what to do if they play bishop back to e7. So after bishop back to e7, there are multiple things we can do. I would recommend to capture here. And the main idea in these variations is to free up as many files and diagonals as we can for our pieces. Because if we want to launch an attack, we will need open lines. So this is already opening up the D file. Then we can castle, for example. You might get some counterattack here, but you don't have to worry about this. We can bring the rook into the game. For example, after takes, takes, takes. And you don't even have to remember the exact move order here, but the thing is you want to capture twice here and open up as many files as you possibly can. And for example, you might get this position. And here you will already start seeing that white has some chances. We can jump in with the knight, also threaten them here. This is annoying. The best option for black is to take, but all of a sudden white here has multiple attacking chances. We have two bishops eyeing down this enemy kingside. We can also go in with the queen. This knight might be able to join in. This rook might be able to come over. So lots of problems for black to solve. Okay, we lost a single pawn here on b2, but that doesn't really matter. And it's hard to find anything here for black. The best option is to chase away the bishop with a move like f6, but there are many crazy lines here. For example, queen h5. Queen h5 attacking this h7 pawn. And of course, if they capture here, you can take with the bishop, go here, and then have this checkmate as well. So they cannot capture your bishop. If they want to play a move like g6, you can just sacrifice the bishop here. If they capture this, capture with the queen. For example, they go back, and then even a move like rook e4, swinging in the rook. This is amazing stuff. Since we are even sacrificing this rook here in the corner, but we don't care. The knight can always come back and block us. And then, for example, here, check, check with the rook, and checkmate with the queen. So in these lines, I would recommend to go for this because you have such amazing attacking chances even after they play a move like bishop to e7. In this video I will teach you how to play the London system. This is my second video in the London system series, and in this video we are going to take a look at the London mainline when black plays the early Rook E8. So the London mainline that we are taking a look at is the position where black plays this pawn to e6. And of course, if you're not familiar with the London, the main idea with the London is to start off with d4, knight f3, bishop f4. I like to play them in that order, and then black has multiple options, but here we are especially looking at those where black plays d5 and e6, leaving his own bishop within his pawn chain. So we are going to play e3, of course, because we want to develop the bishop on the next move. Most of the time black will play bishop to d6. This is the most played move, challenging your light squared bishop, which you can always drop back, of course, because if black takes this, you are now having an extra rook into your kingside attack. So that is good for white, so black usually doesn't take this. So if they attack your bishop, you can drop back. In this video we are also going to take a look at what to do if black plays the more passive move with bishop e7 as well, because there are many amazing tricks against bishop e7. So first bishop d6, we drop back, and then it is black to move. Here again black can do multiple things. Sometimes they will play a move like c5, you can always protect this pawn with c3, and sometimes they are going to castle, which I think is the most played move. If they castle, you can develop the bishop. They might attack your center with something like pawn to c5, you can always defend this. Pushing this is not a good idea, because of course we can just drop back, and black kind of lost his attacking chances here in the center. So they will most likely play knight c6, attacking this as well. Then we can develop this knight here, and this is really the main setup you have to keep in mind for the London system, this triangle, these knights, and then these bishops, and this bishop can also be here, depending on what variation we played. And then in the London, the most popular move is b6. I took a look at that in my previous video, so definitely check that out, because there are many amazing lines to completely destroy black if they play b6, which is the most played move. But here I wanted to take a look at the second most played move, which is Rook e8, and how you can destroy this. So as always, my rule for the London system is don't castle too early, because we are going to play all of the most aggressive lines, all of the tricks, and we'll try to get an early advantage instead of just playing castling and playing it safe. So here we are going to play knight e5. The reason why is, again, if you castle, black is trying to push this. That's what he has been doing all along, playing all these pieces here to prepare this push. So that is why we are going to put our knight here in the center. And this knight here is a really tricky move as well, because there are many ways that black can go wrong. Also, by placing the knight here, we are blockading this pawn. It can no longer move forward, so we stopped the main plan from black in these positions. Black to move, usually you will get this move queen c7, because black really wants to get rid of this knight. And now they have 1, 2, 3 attackers, and we only have 2 defenders on our knight. So that's not so good, we will have to defend it yet again. Of course, they cannot really capture it any earlier, because if they capture it with the knight, they would have gotten this pawn fork, and we are winning material in that variation. Maybe they could have taken it with the bishop, but then you can always capture with this pawn, and then this knight, as you can see, doesn't have a lot of good squares, so it has to go back. And here you can just replace your old knight with the new knight that went from the b1 square all the way here. We have this strong pawn in the center, and we can just castle on the next move. Just to show you that capturing this early on is not so good for black, so most likely you will see something like queen c7, and they are trying to put more pressure here. Well, you can simply defend your knight with this move f4. And we are playing f4 and not knight to f3, because if you play knight to f3, of course you are defending this with the knight, but this knight also had some other purpose here to defend its e4 square, and now that the knight is in front of our pawn, you can no longer push this. So that is why we want to push first, and then later you can always drop this knight to f3 as well, and you will have this reinforced structure. So again, capturing this leads to material loss for black because of this fork. Capturing this with the bishop is also not a good idea, this loses as well, because here you can take with the f pawn, this knight has to go back, and then there is a move like queen h5. And this is actually a line that you can get, because if we take a look at this position, most players capture here, which we will take a look at, but sometimes they capture here as well. And this has been played, and then in the London you always have these early kingside attacks. So for example here, queen h5, this is immediately a checkmate threat on h7. Well, not checkmate since they can go here, but it will lead to checkmate eventually. If they play a random move, for example b6, you can take, and then in these lines you will activate this bishop as well, and then try to go for a checkmate here on the back rank, taking away this square. But of course, white can also try to prevent this, most likely with g6 or h6, one of those moves. If they play something like g6, you can always park your queen here, and simply we can bring over this knight, and we can also push this pawn. So it's really hard to find anything for black. For example, this knight here, let's say they develop the bishop, knight g5, and this is already a checkmate threat. It's hard to deal with this. Maybe some defensive move like knight here. You can also get your rook involved, just making moves for black, not necessarily the best moves, but just to show you there is a lot of pressure here. Even moves like rook f6, and then we will be able to double the rooks, and black is so cramped in this position. It's like nothing they can do really matters, because all of their pieces are stuck. Maybe something like queen here, for example, and then we can double the rooks. And as you can see, there's almost nothing black can do. They can try defending it like this, but once all of your pieces are in position, and these lines you will always have sacrifices. For example, with bishop takes here. And if they capture here, we actually have a checkmate, because we can lift over this rook. And that is just an amazing maneuver, because there is legit nothing that black can do. If they just make any move, we're gonna go here, and yeah, the checkmate is unavoidable. We're always gonna checkmate. Even if they try like to give away the knight, this is still gonna lead to checkmate. So all of this just to show that in this position, after we play this move f4, this is bad because it loses a piece, and this is bad just simply because of this variation, where we will activate the queen, activate the knight, and then also activate the rook as well. And it's just devastating for black. So that's a really good thing about playing the London. Many of these lines are really forced for black. Black doesn't have many choices, so they always have to go down this narrow path, this one specific line in which we also have tactics. So here the only real thing for black is to try and capture here in the center, or to play this move knight to d7. And I first wanted to address this move knight to d7 as well, because this is also one of the most played moves in the position. So the goal from black is simply to add another attacker to this knight. So that's why many players will play knight back here. They want to attack this knight and eliminate it. But here we have beautiful moves, and again, a really common tactic in the London: bishop takes h7, check. If the king takes, queen goes in, queen h5 check. For example, a move like king g8, and now all of a sudden black's in trouble, because they moved this rook earlier on in the game, and now this f7 pawn is no longer defended. So a move like this, check with the queen, and then you can even grab this rook for free. And of course, this is already devastating for black. There is no immediate checkmate, but black just dropped the rook, so black is losing. And this was mainly to show you that just how tricky this position is. If you play your knight in, you will almost always get something like this, and this is so tricky. This doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. It's so easy to go wrong with black. The best attempt is probably something like taking here first. There are multiple approaches. I would recommend taking back like this. Again, capturing here is devastating because of these variations, and this is almost exactly the same as we have seen before, with the knight coming in and then also castling. So it's important just to remember these general IDs. You never have to memorize these exact lines, but you have to know these IDs. So capturing this is not good. Again, if they try to go with the knight back afterwards, you also have this sacrifice. And that is actually the most played line. So in this variation, the most played one is capture, capture, and then they try to go back with the knight. But even in that line, there is bishop takes, king takes, queen in, king back, bam, we are taking here and we are winning the rook as well. Just to show this is so devastating, this variation for black. And there's not much else they can try, maybe something like b6, but then again, you can always castle and we still will have many of these lines because moves like knight d7 are still often played as well. So that is how you can completely destroy black if they play this variation with rook to e8. Next up, I also wanted to take a look at a different line where black plays this bishop to e7, but they still play this pawn to e6. There are also other variations where they develop the bishop earlier or play an early knight c6, and we will look at that in a separate video as well. But here I wanted to show you how you can also destroy black if they play this bishop to e7. So quite simply, we are going to continue with the regular London plan. This, they can castle, they can also play c5, and then this. I mean, it's always the same pattern from white, so really easy to learn this. Again, don't castle too early, just develop your pieces, wait for this move. And the main difference with bishop e7 between bishop d6 is this d6 always challenges your bishop, which can lead to a trade. e7 is just a bit more passive from black, but it is a move that is played quite a lot. So what are we going to do in this position? Black to move will usually play knight c6, and here we are going to play knight e5. Again, of course, you can castle, and many players will castle here as white, but I recommend always going for the tricky lines in the London. So we're going to play knight e5, and this already sets up some nasty traps. The most played line with black, again, is to capture your knight. One of the reasons black also does this is because they know if they just play a random move, you can always back this up, and it's going to be hard to get this knight out of the center. So many people will capture your knight, which is a good move, but this will lead into our trap line. So we're going to capture with the pawn, and again, if you take a look at this knight, it doesn't have that many squares, so they have to go back here to d7. Again, don't castle. We are going to play for tricks. We are going to play this move h4, and we are going to start an immediate kingside attack. And this h4 move is really important in this variation where the bishop is on e7. Because if the bishop is here, you don't want to move your h-pawn because you still need it to take back on g3. And that is a way how you can remember this. You can just remember that if the bishop is here, that means I can push this h-pawn and create an attack. Of course, we are actually giving away this pawn because we cannot capture this with the rook, of course, otherwise we would be losing. But if black takes this, this is a little trap we have. We can sacrifice the bishop. For example, king takes, and then queen h5 check, and then rook h4 check. And we also have a checkmate threat. So black cannot capture this pawn. And most people won't capture, but sometimes you will get a capture here. For example, f6 is the most played by black, and then we can play queen to h5. Queen to h5 is a really good move in many of these lines simply because you can see our bishops are already here and we will destroy black rather quickly. If they try to play something like g6, that is immediately losing because we have a bishop sacrifice here. Check with the queen, the rook goes in, check with the queen, and then we can get this rook activation. And this will lead to something like this, which is a beautiful checkmate. A better move from black is to play something like f5, because this can block our bishop's diagonal, but we're going to go all in with the attack. And the main idea with g4, of course, is they cannot capture us because of takes, and then if they go here, checkmate with the bishop. So they cannot capture us. It's hard to find a move for black. Maybe something like this, because our queen is a little bit cramped. You can always play queen h6 in these lines. And then we can start exchanging to open up the position. If they recapture like this, we actually have a beautiful fork on these two pieces. If they recapture like this, you can sacrifice the bishop. And if they take it, now we are going to activate the rook. The king is pretty much stuck. It has to go here. And then again, we are going to play this to win material. So really hard to defend this from black. In this position, of course, f6 is the most played move, but it doesn't have to be played. Maybe you'll think, well, they can also play something like h6 here as well. Multiple lines, but we are going to use our queen again. If they try to go for g6, you can always remember the sacrifice. The king has to go somewhere. take, the king has to go here, and then just get this rook involved and you will have a nice checkmate. So that doesn't work. Again, hard to find a move for black. If black just plays a passive move, you're gonna go all in on this enemy king side. Let's just say black develops. We're gonna go all in. And that is also why we played this h4 move. If they capture here, this is an immediate checkmate because this pawn has to be here defending. And it's hard to really find the move for black. Let's just say they attack us, for example. You can even ignore this and you can capture here. If they take the bishop, this is devastating because you can capture, and this is a checkmate threat. And if they capture this with the king, you can do rook check, and this is the only variation. You can even take with the bishop here, and then this will be a checkmate as well. So just to say, if they don't do anything, they are losing. If they capture us, they are losing. I mean, if they play something like g6, for example, again, sacrifice the bishop, check, check here with the queen, and we can even push and have this checkmate threat. So you can easily destroy these bishop e7 lines if they take your pawn on e5. And the last variation I wanted to take a look at is the same opening with bishop e7, and then I wanted to show you what you can do in this line after we play our knight here. So as I just showed you, if they take this, you can play the previous variation and destroy them. What to do if they just captured this? So you can capture back, and then usually you will still get this knight to capture here as well, which are many of the same concepts. Of course, they don't have to play this, but again, this is not possible because you would capture the knight for free, and it's hard to find any good plan. Even if they go for something like this, you can always just replace your knight with the other knight as well. So those are just straightforward plans, but I wanted to show you another trick here. So this line, if they capture, again, the knight has to go back. Queen h5 immediately is also playable here instead of h4. If they play g6, always park the queen here. For example, rook e8, and then you can bring this knight in. And you can already see we're gonna have a checkmate here on h7. They can try something like bishop f8. Of course, if they don't, we just have this checkmate. So if they capture your knight, you can just recapture with the bishop, and then this queen already has to move. If they attack this, first we're gonna defend with f4, and you will see there's not really anything going on for black, and then we will just simply threaten this checkmate here. If they exchange the knight, we are gonna again threaten this checkmate, and there is nothing they can do. They will always get this checkmate. So they have to play something like bishop back to f8 to attack the queen. You can just drop the queen back to h3. She is still having a lot of influence here. Bishop g7, knight in, and just always play for the attack. As I said, don't castle, just play for the attack. Knight g5, h6, you can go back. You might think, well, you're going in and then you're going back, but this is a really good move, of course, because now they have a weak pawn here, and we can take this with the bishop. So that is sometimes why you have to play moves. You have to play a move knowing black will be able to defend, just because you want to create a weakness in their camp. And now this pawn structure is so much weaker, because here we can always sack the bishop in some lines. Sometimes you can take here. Black will most likely have to play something like king h7, otherwise they are going to lose this pawn. And just a funny move here, you don't have to play this, but you could even do something like knight g5 check, because of course if they take with the queen, you capture here and they can't recapture here. Just to show you that black is already in a lot of trouble. And here you can play something like rook in. You can also castle. There are a couple of variations. Let's just say we're going to castle in this line, but this black position is really terrible. And if black tries to play something here, like for example with the bishop, you can just play normal moves, develop your rook, develop this rook, and let's just say knight c5. We can drop the bishop back here, so we still have influence, and also stop these knight squares. And the main thing I want to show you is, at this point, like, black is already gonna run out of moves. Let's just make a queen move. Like, black doesn't have any plan. All of these squares are covered. The knight can go in, this bishop is stuck defending, this bishop is stuck. We can always park our knight here as well. So just a terrible position for black to be in, even though there is nothing immediate from white. But still, as I said, for example, knight here is always a move you can play, and then you can reroute the knight, and sometimes you can even play fancy moves, like here, for example. If they capture you, you would win the queen. And if they don't capture you, we are going to completely destroy black. So I would say something, let's just say something like queen e7. Because if they don't do anything, let's say they just play a random move, they are in a lot of trouble because of this check. And then of course, this is coming. And if they play something like this, well, there are multiple moves here. Queen e3, for example, and we can go in with the bishop. We can go in with the queen. So amazing stuff. If they play something like a queen move, you can also jump in with the knight here, attacking this. They will have to play even more defensive. And then bam, we can take here, take this, and this king is already in so much trouble. They will have to do something like queen here, and you can just keep attacking. And as I said, in these lines there is no immediate checkmate, but you can already see we can bring in the rooks, we can sacrifice this bishop. This is all devastating, and the engine even says +7 here for white. So you can see it's really hard to play this from the white side. So now you should be able to know how you can completely destroy black if they are in the main line with the rook e8, and also if they are in the main line with bishop e7. In this video I will show you how to play with white against the London system copycat. And if you don't know how to deal with this, it can be really annoying to face this opening, but I will teach you a couple of really interesting variations so you can destroy black if they try to play this copycat system. So the London copycat system is a way for black to try and defend against the London by just copying your system. So they will also try to create this triangle with their pawns, play the knight here, play the bishop here, and they will just copy all of your moves. And if you don't know what to do against this, and you just end up in a situation like this, for example, bishop here, castles, bishop here, castles, something like this will be very, very drawish, and there won't really be any chances for white. So what I like to do against this copycat system is, after we have reached this position, is to first play knight b to d2. And this will kind of confuse your opponents. They will not know why you play this instead of e3, but they will probably still think that you are going for the London system. So they are going to continue most likely with the move e6. Afterwards, we will immediately play this move c4, leaving the London theory with c3 behind, because we want to create an asymmetrical position so that we have some imbalances that we can work with. The imbalances are just differences in our positions, and this pawn move is already our first difference that we are going to start off with. And there are a couple of ways for black to deal with this. He can always capture. I think most people won't capture this. Most people probably will play c6 for the London triangle, which we are going to continue with. But they can also choose to capture this. And I wanted to quickly take a look at this, because you should not capture back with this knight. That's not a good idea, because you will run into this check, and this check is really annoying. You will have to drop back. You have to do some exchanges here. I would not recommend that. So if they capture this, just know that you can play this move queen to a4. Queen to a4, giving a check while also attacking this pawn. So black will have to block. They can block with the pawn, they can block with the knight, they can block with the queen. You can always trade in that case. I think blocking with the knight is probably the most common. And then you can play e3. And we play this just because we want to capture back this pawn, but we don't want to move this knight or this queen a second time. That would be wasting a tempo. So we are going to try to capture this back with the bishop. For example, after they go here, which they can still do, you can play bishop here. They can castle. Something else they can always try is to go in here, but you will realize this doesn't really work, because this is still defended by the knight, and you can actually put a lot of pressure here and create some problems for black. For example, this variation, you can take back here. You can also take back here with check first if you want. Check, then check with the queen. And then here, for example, this loses the rook, so the king has to go up. And then afterwards, we're going to take back here. So this variation is really bad for black, but I think you might get this. If they capture here, you will probably eventually go into this variation where they play the knight up, or they will castle, in which case you can also castle. If you play c4, like I said, they will probably protect with c6. Something else they can do that you should also know is, what if they play bishop d6? Well, I recommend just capturing this, drawing out their queen, and then we're going to play b3. Most likely you will get b6, and this is going to transpose to what we will take a look at in this video. So the most likely response is c6, and then here our plan is queen b3, and this is crucial to know. and we are going to fight to get a strategically winning position, and I will explain just in a moment what that means. So here we are abusing the fact that this bishop is no longer protecting this b7 pawn. So we are attacking it with our queen, forcing black on the defense, forcing black to make a decision and do something. The most likely defense you will get is queen b6, after which we are gonna push the pawn to c5. There are other options for black, like queen c8, defending, or b6. I will take a look at that afterwards. First, we're gonna continue with the main line, which is queen to b6. So after queen to b6, I recommend playing this move c5. And our entire goal here is to force black into this trade. Because if you take a look at this, we are attacking the queen. The queen cannot go back here, of course, because of the bishop. If the queen goes all the way back, we are winning this pawn. If the queen sidesteps, for example here, to try and keep up the defense, we have e4 with a double attack. So the only option for black is to capture, and then we will not capture back with the knight. We're going to capture back with the pawn, and that is the entire idea. We are going to create a passed pawn on the queen side, which is something we can try to force in this position. So let's say black develops, and we are going to play e3 because we are going to need the light squared bishop here, and that is an important idea to remember. To create these doubled pawns for yourself after the queen exchange, and then we're going to push this pawn all the way to promotion. For example, bishop e7, we're going to push, castles, we're going to push. You don't even need to develop your bishop or castle. All of those moves are way too slow. What we want to do is we want to create a passed pawn, so we are going to keep pushing these pawns down the board. Black could always think about stopping us by playing a6, but you have to know this doesn't work because you can just play b5. And of course this capture doesn't work because this loses the rook and also the game. And if they capture with this pawn, we can just recapture because this pawn is still pinned, otherwise black would lose the rook. So just to show you, if they try to play a6, don't worry, your plan will still work. Let's say they castle, we're gonna play b5, trying to break open this position. And you will notice how this dark squared bishop is our most important piece. We want to keep this piece alive, because this piece is controlling this b8 square, and that is a crucial square that black would need to defend with his rooks. That is why this bishop is doing an amazing job, and you want to do everything to keep this bishop alive. That is why sometimes a move like knight h5 can be annoying. If you want to prevent that, you can always play a move like h3 in many lines, but I would say go for the aggressive play first with a move like b5 and try to really fight for your promotion. If they capture you, which they most likely will, you can always capture back with your light squared bishop, and this is when we will develop the bishop. And you can see here we already have a pretty amazing position. Pressure on multiple points, really active bishops, and we're also threatening in many lines to play this move c6. Let's say white plays a6, we're just gonna draw back with the bishop because we still have another b pawn and we can push this one all the way to promotion. Black to move, let's say they play a move like h6, because their plan is of course to go for g5 and then also get our bishop in trouble. If they immediately go for your bishop, you can actually always hide the bishop here, and that is an interesting concept to keep in mind as well. And if they attack you with a rook, you can always drop back here, and that way you can keep your bishop alive, which is really important. You can also play the move h3 to create this new hole for your bishop. So if black ever attacks you, we can always just drop back, and still the bishop is sitting here like a sniper looking at this b8 square. And if black is not careful and puts a rook there, of course, we will be able to capture it. And it's easy to miss this bishop from the black side. So bishop h2. So yeah, rook there doesn't work. That's what I wanted to say. If they don't go for your bishop, because they know you can draw back, they can always try something like rook here. We can castle. And then after we have castled, our main idea will be to push this pawn to promotion still. Of course, black can try out many things. You don't need to know the exact variations. Just know it's fine trading pieces. You don't have to worry about trading pieces as long as you keep this dark squared bishop alive. b4, we are going for the attack. Black can exchange all he wants, doesn't matter. We still have this dark squared bishop. Black comes in with the knight, and then we can double the rooks here. Of course, pushing here is not smart. Black can just capture and we don't get anything. So our goal is to first double up here on the A file, and then we will push this pawn, because black will not be able to capture back. Let's say the knight goes here, you can even capture it. Of course, you don't need to capture this, but it's just a good idea to trade off all of these pieces because we just want to have our dark squared bishop here as our final piece. And then we have rook a1, and here we are achieving our goal. We are doubling the rooks on the a file. Of course, if black ever tries to challenge you here, you can just play the bishop to d6 or play the bishop to h2. Just don't trade this bishop. Let's say f6 by black, since black is trying to go for some kind of attack here. And then here we can play this move b5. And of course, capturing this is not a good move because black would just be losing a rook. So black is not able to capture this. And also, of course, pushing doesn't work because we can just capture this for free. And there's really nothing black can do. Let's say they just move the king. And then we're going to play this beautiful move c6. And this is an important concept to know, that you want to attack the pawns sideways twice like this. And this is a really interesting position because black loses in every single variation. If black captures here, which I think they will do, because of course here they still loses the rook. And if they capture with the rook, they also lose a rook. If they try to defend, they also lose a rook. So probably black will capture this. And then we are just going to push. This pawn is going to run in between these two other pawns, and he's going to run to promotion. And it's not possible for black to stop this, because if black tries to stop it with a rook, we can always snipe the rook with the bishop, and then we can come in with this rook, and we will still be able to promote. And there's just nothing black can do. Of course, all of these moves also don't work because of our pawn. And if black tries to be sneaky, for example here, and play something like rook a7, you can actually play b6 immediately. This rook has to go back, and then again this pawn is promoting. So that is the variation you can go for. And the main idea you have to remember here is to go for this queen b3, push c5, exchange the queens, and then your plan is to just push the b pawns down the board and keep your dark squared bishop alive. You might get slightly different variations, but if you can remember that, you will be fine. I also wanted to leave you with some ideas for the other variations. So here, of course, black doesn't have to play queen b6. Black also has two other options, b6 and queen c8. b6 is something you will probably get, especially at the lower levels. I would not play this as black because you are weakening this, but I think you will get this. And against this, I recommend going for e3, let's say bishop there, and then we play knight to e5. And with knight to e5, we are trying to set up tricks. Let's say castles, bishop e2. You can also play bishop d3, but I will just keep your bishop alive, don't exchange too much. And here many people will go wrong and play knight to d7. This is of course losing, but there is an even better move, knight takes f7. Knight takes f7, attacking the queen. If they capture this, attacking the bishop. And we basically win a free bishop. Of course, if they see this and they try to not go for this, they can always try to play something else. Like for example, this move, c5, you can still castle. If they capture, we still have this pawn here to capture back. If they capture here, we can capture with the knight. And all of these positions are really good for white. You will be able to put your rooks here, push this in some variations. Also sometimes there are tricks you can play here on the long diagonal. So all by all, a good position for white. Queen c8, I think this is a bit of a more high level defensive move that you won't see too much, but it is possible of course. Then I would just say go and eliminate this light squared bishop, like this. And this will create a pretty weird dynamic. Of course black can also capture back like this, but that's pretty terrible because this is weakening the center a lot. Black will capture back like this most likely, and then we can play this special move in the London, which is g3. You almost never play this, but this is one of those rare situations where you can play this. And most of the time you cannot play a move like this, for example here, because you're kind of getting your own bishop stuck in many lines. A black will go for h6, g5, and it's a bit annoying that you have your bishop here, it cannot go back. But in our line, after we have traded this pawn, well, this g5 push is no longer possible, or at least not easy to play from the black side. So we can develop the bishop, and here we basically have two snipers looking at the enemy queen side, seeing to do some damage. Let's say castles, castles, and then of course we can activate the rooks, and we can play a move like e4 here, or we can also be a little bit more careful and first develop this rook and then also play e4. It's already hard to find a move for black. Black is actually really cramped. Maybe a5. Yeah, other than that, knight b6 maybe. And then you have a move like e4. And white is already winning here. Let's say takes, takes, takes. We capture with the bishop. We have this position already pretty amazing. And many lines we will also break open the center here with pawn to d5. And everything is going to fall apart and we will have all of the active pieces and there will be tactics in every single line. If you enjoyed this video, definitely subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment. I love reading all of the comments and I respond to pretty much every comment. So leave a like, leave a comment, and that's it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.